one of the reasons I welcomed the trip was to be able to learn more about Japanese culture. We have so many Oriental children in the schools who need understanding.
And it's always been intriguing to me, the Eastern philosophy, the Eastern approach. And I think it might provide for me personally some new inner dimensions of looking to myself in terms of feelings, as well as dealing with those people who surround me and my family and my business.
And I heard about this trip from a friend of my husband's, and he was tremendously impressed and enthused about it, so that's why we came along this time.
She said it was most difficult to explain it to us, but that there was some kind of a peaceful way of life involved.
If you go far enough behind or look behind the facade of most nations, most religions, you find the real people, warm, generous, outgoing. And I think that that's exactly what I'm going to find in the Reiyukai, the concerned people.
The one thing that he said that really got the adrenaline going was you have to experience it to believe it.
Acting on the belief that spiritual ideals are best spread by person-to-person contact, each year the men and women of Reiyukai, one of the world's newest and largest Buddhist organizations, invite several hundred Americans to visit Japan. This is the story of one such trip and how it affected those who took part in it. Leaving Tokyo's Haneda Airport, the visitors travel by bus to the Pacific Hotel. The next day, there is a lavish welcome party. Mr. Koide, a senior director, greets the visitors. The hand of friendship is also extended by Mrs. Hamaguchi, one of the heads of the overseas department. Although Mr. Kubo, the Reiyukai's highest leader, is out of the city, Mrs. Kubo, his wife, personally welcomes the Americans to Japan. The buffet table is laden with mouth-watering delicacies, and the conversation is stimulated by a flow of wine, sake, and other beverages. In addition to the leaders, there are several Reiyukai companions, specially selected young people who have studied English in order to be of service during the trip. Mr. Masunaga, a senior executive director, toasts kanpai, which means dry cup or bottoms up.
I'm Gail Prince, and I live in Beverly Hills, California. And this is our first trip to the Orient, and it's been just like a dream. It's just as exciting as can be. I'm very taken with the gentleness and the welcoming quality of the people from Reiyukai. And I'm sorry it's only 12 days.
私はマーテン・スミスです。私はロサンゼルスに住んでいます。I live in Los Angeles. My name is Martin Smith.
Where did you learn to speak Japanese?
I learned to speak Japanese at night school. I've been attending night classes at my old high school, and I have an interest in foreign language.
And I've always wanted to come to Japan, and so I just came because it was a great opportunity, and I was invited to come with friends, and here we are. I can't believe it yet.
A few hours later, we speed off along Tokyo's superhighways for several days of sightseeing. This is Lake Ashi in the mountains of the Fuji-Hakone-Izu National Park. From the lake, there are several vantage points for viewing Mount Fuji, but the usual summer clouds obscure its dramatic slopes. On the shore is a tori, the gateway of a Shinto shrine to the god of the lake. Those who practice Shintoism worship a pantheon headed by the sun goddess, which includes numerous gods, goddesses, and spirits. In the former capital city of Kyoto is the famous Heian Shrine. Although less than 100 years old, having been built in 1895 after the government moved to Tokyo, the Heian Shrine is a small-scale copy of the original imperial palace of the 8th century. Its garden is world-renowned. The granite stepping stones provide a path through the multitudes of flowers that decorate the garden in the summer. The theory behind the charming landscape gardens of Japan is to depict the finest essence of nature within the limited space available. Originally imported from China through Korea about 1,500 years ago, many, such as this one, were designed by Zen Buddhist priests. It surrounds the famed Kinkakuji, Temple of the Golden Pavilion in Kyoto. A legendary golden phoenix tops its shingled roof. The Kasuga Shinto Shrine, noted for its 3,000 lanterns, is in Nara, which preceded Kyoto as Japan's first capital. Founded by the Fujiwara clan in 768 AD, the Kasuga Shrine's well-preserved artifacts provide insights into the ancient origins of Japanese culture. Most of the hanging lanterns are from past centuries, but some are new. Many bear the names of their donors and the date they were given. Some of the stone lanterns are thought to be over 800 years old. The Ryoanji Zen Buddhist temple in Kyoto has a rock garden which dates back to the 16th century. The adherents of Zen feel that silently contemplating the 5 groups of stones can be a profoundly meaningful experience. The vast Todaiji temple in Nara was first built in the 8th century. It is most famous for Daibutsu, the great Buddha, the largest bronze statue in the world, 53 feet high and weighing 452 tons. Cast in 749, the head, which is 16 feet long, was twice shaken off in earthquakes. The Todaiji temple's main hall contains a large wooden column pierced by a small hole. Legend has it that whoever manages to squeeze through will surely go to paradise. No visitor to the Todaiji temple can avoid running the gauntlet of its deer park of more than 1,000 tame animals. According to Shinto legend, the deer are divine messengers. It is traditional to feed them thin biscuits, for which they beg by bowing their heads. Occasionally, however, the little deers become impatient. While the stags and does are quite bold, the fawns shy away from humans, preferring to get their food from their mothers. The Japanese enjoy eating, and examples of various types of cuisine are among the most pleasant parts of the trip. At the Chinzanso restaurant in Tokyo, the Americans dine on the famous Genghis Khan barbecue. Tempura is the specialty of the Minokichi in Kyoto. For many, it is the first time they've ever eaten with chopsticks, or while sitting on the floor. Those who have their cameras ready enjoy an unusual bit of luck. There is Mount Fuji. Seeing it during the cloudy summer months supposedly gives you a pure mind. This trip, however, includes far more than merely touring Japan's charming countryside and teeming cities. Behind the flashing lights, stainless steel and plate glass, we have come to learn about the spiritual nature of Japanese society. Its 100 million plus inhabitants include 81 million Shintoists and 83 million Buddhists, with many adhering to both religions. While research into the origins of Shintoism, which goes back into prehistory, was discouraged until the end of the Second World War, the story of Buddhism is well known. During the 5th century BC, a prince of the Shaka clan of India left his family's palace to wander as a beggar, seeking to understand the meaning of life. After 6 years of practicing the strictest asceticism, he developed a comprehension of the basic principles of existence. He spent the next 45 years until his death preaching to his disciples, who came to speak of him as Buddha, the perfectly enlightened one, or Shakyamuni, the sage of the Shaka clan. Everything which exists, he told them, from the strongest warrior to the weakest infant, from the blazing sun to the smallest spark, is an equal part of Dharma, the ultimate reality. Furthermore, everything is interrelated, part of karma, the complex chain of cause and effect, which extends through everyone and everything affected in any way by our existence. We must therefore have consideration and respect for our parents and ancestors, our children, and all other beings and things. All people, he declared, are capable of enlightenment, of understanding this, the true nature of existence. And the way to achieve it is by doing good to others, and by divesting ourselves of the illusions, greed, and temptations which cause life's frustration and suffering. Among his final teachings, the Shakyamuni said, "A man's mind may make of him a Buddha, or it may make of him a beast. Being misled by error, one becomes a demon. Being enlightened, one becomes a Buddha." In the middle of the 6th century, Buddhist ideas reached Japan. They were transformed into a cult which urged obedience and was supported by the imperial family. This lasted until the 13th century when, driven to desperation by internal disturbances and Mongol invasion attempts, the Japanese changed Buddhism from a theoretical religion supporting the state into a practical guide for living, which promised salvation not only for the elite, but also for the ordinary people. But as it acquired popularity, Buddhism split into various sects, and its priests became overly concerned with strengthening their power and privileges. By the end of the First World War, many were displeased with the priesthood's lack of concern for the welfare of the people. One such critic was Mr. Kakutaro Kubo, who in 1919 urged people to experience and practice Buddha's teachings personally and directly. He found a worthy collaborator in his sister-in-law, Mrs. Kimi Kotani. Together in 1920, they founded what was later to be known as the Reiyukai, or Association of Spiritual Fellowship, the first such organization for laymen in the long history of Buddhism. Slowly but steadily, their ideas came to be shared by others. Following Mr. Kakutaro Kubo's death in 1944, Mrs. Kotani undertook the task of raising his young son, Tsugunari Kubo. The end of the Second World War in 1945 left the people of Japan defeated and confused. More and more turned to Buddhism for guidance. Membership in the Reiyukai soared dramatically. In 1964, an inspirational and training center for young people was opened high on a mountain overlooking the Pacific. It is named the Miroku-san, or House of Miroku, the spirit of one of Buddha's disciples, who stands for bringing happiness to others and the world of the future. Mrs. Kotani had long expressed her hope to have a great hall built which would be called the Shakaden, or House of Shakyamuni, the originator of Buddhism. Its construction, which was to take 5 years, had barely begun when on February 9, 1971, at 72 years of age, Mrs. Kotani returned to the spirit world. A seemingly endless line of mourners attended the funeral of a woman who, although born to poor farmers, had through her teachings and example inspired and enriched the lives of millions. The services in Mrs. Kimi Kotani's memory were led by Mr. Tsugunari Kubo, who became the highest leader after her demise. The past few years have witnessed the continuing growth of the Reiyukai. By the mid-1970s, there were more than 2.5 million members in Japan, and people from some 30 other nations had joined the organization. Each year at Miroku-san, thousands of young people pay their respects at Mrs. Kotani's tomb. Groups of young men and women gather at the Haiden, or Hall of Resolution, to engage in group discussions. Subjects such as the meaning of life are considered in the light of Buddha's teachings. Each group is urged to stand up and announce their conclusions to the General Assembly. They are encouraged to both think for themselves and to be enthusiastic about sharing their thoughts with others. Invited to spend 2 days and a night participating in the activities at Miroku-san, our buses slowly push up the steep slopes of Tongasa Mountain in the Izu-Amagi Range. At an altitude of 3,300 feet, we reach the Miroku-san. Although built in the mid-1960s, it incorporates elements of the traditional architecture of the 8th century, thus symbolizing the ancient origins of the ideals adhered to by the members of the Reiyukai today. At the screen, or lodging house, which offers accommodations for over 1,000 people, we exchange our street shoes for slippers, which is the practice when entering a traditional Japanese dwelling. Each room contains a television monitor for observing the services in the high-den. Everyone sleeps dormitory style. Because of Midoku-san's spiritual nature, no meat or alcoholic beverages are consumed there. Simple yet filling vegetarian meals are served in a central hall. Mr. Masunaga demonstrates the proper method of holding prayer beads. There are 108 beads. Their shape represents the human body. It is believed that they symbolize man's various desires. Mrs. Okamura, another senior director, leads the chanting of Namu Myo Ho Renge Kyo. Namu Myo Ho Renge Kyo, translated literally, states, I devote myself to the lotus of the true law. It means, in simplified terms, I pledge myself to live by the principles of universal reality, change, and harmony. While chanting, we should focus our minds on benefiting the spirits of both our parents and other ancestors, and those of our children and future descendants. The sash is worn while chanting. It is a layman's version of the robes used by monks and priests. Dr. Small of Los Angeles leads the reciting of the Sutra, a collection of sermons or lectures about how to live harmoniously. Far from being fatalists, Buddhists believe that through our actions, each of us is capable of improving his or her karma, or relationship to all things. Going further, the members of the Reiyukai believe that by reciting the sutra, we can also alleviate the suffering of the spirits of those of our ancestors who, by mistakenly having performed bad deeds, achieved a negative karma during their lifetime. Not all of the instruction at Midoku-san is one way. Jim Conrad of Southern California gives a demonstration of karate movement, showing our Japanese friends that at least this aspect of their traditional culture is already practiced in the United States. The Americans join with hundreds of Japanese Reiyukai members in the procession to the high-den. Flanked by a portrait of the late Mrs. Kimiko Tani, Mr. Tsugunari Kubo, the highest leader of the Reiyukai, welcomes the Americans to Midoku-san. He explains the basic tenets of the Reiyukai and how it differs from all other Buddhist sects. His first point is that Buddha should not be confused with the Judeo-Christian concept of God. When Shakyamuni achieved Buddhahood, he did not become a supernatural being. What he became was a completely enlightened person. And according to his sutras or teachings, all people possess a similar potential for enlightenment. Each of us has the possibility of ultimately achieving Buddhahood by increasing our own goodness and wisdom. This, together with the idea of karma, of universal cause and effect, is basic to all Buddhists. The tenets which make Reiyukai unique are, firstly, that it is a layman's organization, has no priests, and is open to everyone, regardless of their race, sex, or whatever religion they may wish to continue to adhere to. Secondly, Buddhism should be a guide for good actions, not merely something to be philosophized about by experts. Thirdly, each person should develop their own judgment and not rely on others to dictate values or make decisions for them. Fourthly, each of us must become aware of how our lives and actions affect those near to us and the world as a whole. And if we perceive that our attitudes or actions are causing injury or distress, we must strive to change them for the better. The key which combines these 4 points and makes them meaningful is doing. Desire to do what you know to be good. Determine the best way to do what is good. Then actually do what is good. This, the act of physically striving to do good, stems from a feeling which the Reiyukai calls inner trip. Going inside your own mind and developing good ideas towards others, and then carrying them out in your daily life. The Americans participate in another of the activities practiced at Miroku-san. 5 minutes of getting to know the people around you. When the announcement is made that it is time to introduce our new acquaintances, everyone wants to get up and speak. Mrs. Janet Fisher of Culver City, California, expresses her gratitude for the hospitality shown us. Edward Smuckler of Philadelphia also takes the microphone. The Reiyukai places great value on its members sharing their personal experiences. A young woman tells how she'd grown up hating her father. Following his death, she'd found herself tormented by remorse and guilt for having held bad feelings toward him. The Reiyukai helped her realize that her father was the victim of circumstances which made him miserable. In his confusion, he'd lashed out at those around him. The only way she, as a child, had known to respond to his cruelty was by hating him, which had made her miserable as well. Now she tries to bring peace to her late father's spirit by praying and reciting the sutra for him. In the balloon room, a large air pressure supported dome, the Americans join in the popular Bon dances. According to legend, they originated in the 7th century when a Buddhist disciple danced to celebrate the admission of his deceased mother's spirit into paradise. It is traditional to perform these dances at the Bon Festival, or Feast of Lanterns, celebrated in July throughout Japan. At Miroku-san, the participants in inner trips do them as part of the Reiyukai philosophy that joyful activities are an integral part of existence. Participating in the popular game Janken-pon, or paper, scissors, rock, is a way to have fun despite the language barrier. Not to be outdone, the Americans retaliate with one of their dances, the bunny hop, which probably originated at a high school prom way back in the early 1950s. Above the Haiden, or Hall of Resolution, is the Miroku-do, the inner sanctuary where the statue of Miroku is enshrined. The Americans are allowed to view the image, a privilege accorded only to those who have participated in the Miroku-san training program. While viewing the statue, it is the practice to make a silent personal vow to strive for enlightenment and to bring happiness to others. At the closing ceremony in the Haiden, Mr. Kubo prays for the benefit of all who have come to Miroku-san.
I didn't realize when they said you're praying and you're talking to your ancestors just what you hope to gain by that. But suddenly it's like, a light is turned on and you begin to appreciate that what they're saying is you stem from these people. You pick up their good and bad traits, or at least this is what I got out of it. And you can either emphasize the bad traits or emphasize the good. But if you call to them and you pray to them and you feel, you go back in your history, that suddenly you begin to, how shall I put that, take on some of the better traits. And I think it does begin to enlighten your way of life in the future and for yourself and for your children.
Travel time between Japan's major cities has been sharply reduced by the new bullet trains, the fastest in the world, which rocket along at almost 130 miles per hour. The smooth ride at such high speeds is made possible by advances in technology which permit the laying of single sections of rail up to 1 mile in length. During the ride, several of the Americans discussed their impressions of the trip to date.
I think probably the most impressive thing has been the relationship of the youth to each other and to those of us who came in from the United States. I feel that their togetherness, their interest and enthusiasm for the program of the Reiyukai has been very impressive to me, and their sincerity has been something that I had not expected to see.
Yeah, I've always had an interest in Buddhism and Eastern religions, and I have a better insight there. And it also strengthened my own personal convictions about religion, and that is that man seeks to understand his environment, and mostly religions are an expression of that search. And the differences that I see in religions are results of the impact of a man's environment on trying to answer that question.
And since we were doing things we had never done before, they made it as easy as possible. They're wanting to know about us, and we wanting to know about them was fantastic.
I feel that what I learned at Muruksan is that people the world over have similar objectives and goals, and that we are all concerned with peace in the world and with inner peace and with developing good relationships among our families and among other peoples in the world, and that if we have a difference, it's in the way we go about it, about reaching those objectives. But it does give one a very close feeling with his fellow man to know that we do have the same goal.
Osaka, with almost 3 million inhabitants, is the second largest city in Japan. Formerly called the Venice of the Orient because of its many waterways, today it is jammed with factories and freeways. One of its best-known reminders of the past is the Osaka Castle. Originally built 400 years ago, it is noted for both its magnificent scale and massive granite walls. Golden dolphins adorn the dojon, or central building. Destroyed in clan wars several times over the centuries, it was most recently rebuilt in 1931. At Muruksan, we'd learned a great deal about the past. Now, here in Osaka, we are to see how their belief in doing goodness to others influences the way Reiyukai's members live in the present. This is the assembly hall of Reiyukai's 8th branch, built in 1969. Mrs. Masunaga and her husband, the senior director of the 8th branch, are among those greeting the Americans. After literally hundreds of handshakes, everyone enters the assembly hall. Among various entertainments presented is a performance on the koto and other classical instruments. A traditional dance is performed by women dressed as geishas. A 5-year-old boy joins his father on the tenju drum. Outside, on the bandstand, a group of women wearing yukatas, cotton summer-type kimonos, lead the bon dances. Inside the hall, the American guests see demonstrations of calligraphy. The characters for peace, friendship, happiness, and their own names are drawn and given to them. Origami, the art of folding paper into various shapes, is very popular in Japan. Samples are given to the guests. But the most important events are the people-to-people exchanges with Reiyukai members, young and old alike. The Reiyukai's way of attracting new members is by practicing michibiki, or person-to-person communication. It is this openness, this readiness to be friendly with others, even complete strangers, which characterizes their lifestyle. Richard Warnick of Reseda, California, joins the musicians on the tenju drum.
Never had such a reception in my whole life. If I were President of the United States, I don't think I could have been accorded a finer reception than we of America received here today.
I don't understand, parts of it because it's a foreign religion, but the philosophy and the way they treat other people is outstanding.
I think it's just fabulous. I can't get over the people, and it's just too much. Great.
This is one of the most fantastic things that I've ever witnessed. I'm so happy that I did come because it's unbelievable.
Returning to Tokyo, we proceed to a construction site in the Azabudai district. Here, looming over the skyline, Shakaden, the vast hall envisioned by the late Mrs. Kimikotani, is nearing completion. We are among the first permitted to enter this vast edifice. The plans, which took 5 years to execute before building began, call for a central pillarless hall seating 5,000. Within it will stand the principal image of Shakyamuni Buddha. Several years ago, Mrs. Kotani commissioned Seiko Sawada, the sculptor, to carve the statue. Utilizing a single camphor wood tree, he completed the 3-ton, 16-foot-tall image prior to her death. In addition to being a symbol of the Reiyukai, it is considered a significant work of art. Work on the Shakaden began in 1971. Because of both the danger of earthquakes and a desire to make it a symbol of the everlasting nature of Buddha's wisdom, the strongest known structural techniques and most permanent materials have been used. Containing a complete TV studio and nursery, its reinforced foundations and metal frame involve over 50,000 cubic yards of concrete and more than 12,000 tons of steel.
I think that there is relevance to the American people from the ideas of the Reiyukai. One of these things that I like that comes across to me is the idea that their brotherhood is a necessary thing in a more peaceful world.
In my own personal life, I think I have an awful lot to learn from the Japanese people, how to live, how to be a better person, how to treat people, how to get along better with people.
Because I am beginning a new lifestyle, I believe that it is going to help me to create the kind of lifestyle that I want to live. And I feel that I have become a little bit stronger as an individual person.
I feel that the world, not just the United States, can benefit by the Reiyukai philosophy. It's the philosophy, I think, that has impressed me so greatly. And I think that even though our cultures are different, it shows that we can extend love and warmth to each other. It's a very beautiful experience.
October 30th, 1975. After 5 years of planning and more than 4 years of construction, Shakaden is completed. Its reinforced concrete roof is surfaced with 54,000 square feet of the highest quality stainless steel, designed to resist the elements for centuries. The twin metal rings symbolize the Reiyukai's co-founders and their goals of universal peace and harmony. The wide steps ascending to the main entrance are of Brazilian granite. The Shakaden's inner trip plaza is flanked by 28 huge pillars. Representing the chapters of the Lotus Sutra, they support the temple's immense weight. Reiyukai staff members practice for the coming festivals. Adjoining the inner trip plaza is a well-equipped nursery for the children of those attending the ceremonies. The latest electronic facilities are made ready for recording and transmitting the proceedings. Dawn, Sunday, November 9, 1975. Reiyukai branch directors from throughout Japan congregate for the grand opening ceremony. "5,000 gather in the main hall. 2,000 others view the ceremony via closed-circuit television. Some 200 members from 33 other nations are also in attendance. Among them, delegates from the USA, Canada, Mexico, Brazil, England, France, and Israel. Led by Mr. Kubo, the assembled multitude chants Namu Myo Orenge Kyo as the great doors slowly open to reveal the image of Shakyamuni, the founder of Buddhism. The light emanating from the inner sanctuary fills the hall with a warm golden glow. As part of the ceremony, the foreign delegations pledged to spread the Reiyukai's teachings in their own countries. Concluding the grand opening ceremony, Mr. Kubo, Mrs. Kubo, and the senior directors join in singing the Reiyukai hymn. At the festival, Mr. Kubo breaks open a barrel of sake, traditional in Japan when commemorating a new building. Representatives of a Chinese Buddhist sect are among those attending. Pounding steamed rice for cakes is a popular tradition on joyous occasions. During the next 61 days, a series of ceremonies takes place in the Shakaden. All in all, over 250,000 of the Reiyukai's more than 2,500,000 members participate. In early December 1975, 8,000 members of the Youth Group Society filled the vast temple to capacity. Young people from the United States and Mexico are also present. The Japanese part of the show culminates with the spectacular country-style musicians and dancers. Reiyukai-America is represented by the Bright Side, an upbeat group from San Diego, California. In 1954, when Mr. Kubo was 18, he was the first chairman of the Youth Group Society. Now, as the Reiyukai's highest leader, he invites the young people of all nations to join hands in friendship, to cooperate in peace and harmony, to help build Buddha's world.
The inner trip has been for me a true journey into my heart.
To be loved, to be something in the world, to know that you're not alone. No matter where you go, you've got friends. I think it's marvelous. I really do.
The Reiyukai welcomes peace-loving people of all races, creeds, and nationalities to come to Shakaden.